Please put your hands together for Dr. Jitendra Singh.
Director IICT, Dr. Srinivas Reddy, our friend Dr. Krishna Ella, Dr. Satyanarayana Reddy, Mr. Dave, senior members of the faculty, members of the scientific fraternity, ladies and gentlemen. Much like Krishna Ella, even if I'm given talking points, I make it a point not to talk from them because they are actually the sentiments of the person who's written it. So picking up from where he started, I think at the outset, I owe to thank him for the kind words about me. And if he says that I like to believe what he said because all good words. So if he says that I could make out what is going to be said, it's also because we were trained as clinicians at a time where we didn't have much of a technology. We were asked to learn by spotters. So if a person walking out from the complexion, you tell him whether he's suffering from a kidney failure or not. And we were taught in tips. Dr. P.V. Rao is there, one of our contemporaries and a senior. So if it's a pale, sallow complexion, what are the three markers? If it's an elderly person, kidney failure. If it's a younger person, maybe anemic. If it is too young, maybe hookworm. So I think we've been trained, and I belong to a generation of the scientific fraternity which were taught through those symbolic footprints. But nevertheless, Krishna Ella himself is an institution who's been an inspiration for an entire genre of researchers, industrialists, and has also shown the way how to make best of the system that is available to us, and particularly in the kind of regime headed by someone like Prime Minister Narendra Modi, who is open to new experimentations, open to path-breaking initiatives. I think this is an era where Krishna Ella and the likes can make the best of their potentials and their talents. So I welcome him being here. Dr. Reddy has had a wide exposure. He's taken over this assignment right from the northernmost lab of Jammu, where too he's left his footprints. It was during his time. The Aroma mission took up in a big way. The Purple Revolution was born when Reddy was the midwife. So the birth took place in IIIM Jammu. And it's now picked up in such a big way that the other day we had the governments of Uttarakhand and Himachal Pradesh also approaching us that they want to actually replicate the same success story which was created by Dr. Reddy and his team in Jammu. And I'm glad that it's now. And I'm glad that's now coming up as an important and lucrative alternative means of what could be described as the new generation of agri-tech startups. Also, it was during his time that the cannabis project, the first ever in India, took off, where, of course, we had a lot of problems, initial hiccups. It had to be done with the collaboration of a French company. So the approvals had to be taken. The regulations had to be adhered. Then the cultivation of cannabis for commercial purposes also had to be approved of. But I'm glad that during his tenure that happened. And also, if he has forgotten, I think the 10th or the 11th biotech industrial park was set up by him, first ever in North India. So to those who know of Srinivas Reddy as someone as a Hyderabadi, this is some kind of an introduction of being someone who has deep roots in North India as well. So having said that, ladies and gentlemen, it is indeed a pleasure for me to be over here in the city of Hyderabad and in this heritage institution of IICT. And Hyderabad, as I said, has a unique characteristic. It offers you a unique combination of tradition with technology, culture with chemistry, and of course in Nizam with New India. All the three being represented in this institution. You have the footprint of Nizam, the footprint of the modern New India, and you have the chemical technology flourishing in the background of the rich culture. And you have the technology being carried forward by the tradition of work and ethics that we have inherited. And therefore, it is also auspicious for me to be here, though it's not for the first time that I'm here. But what is important is that today happens to be a day when in many parts of India, people are celebrating Holi. So, ladies and gentlemen, I think this forum, and I congratulate you all to have turned up in such a huge number to prove to the rest of the world that it is a holy day, but not a holiday. Although the spelling may be similar, Holiday, and that is in the true spirit of the Karma Yogi or Mission Karma Yogi, the kind of mantra that Prime Minister Modi keeps laying before us. For a short time that we have at our disposal, if we are able to dedicate our energies, our capacities to the service of nation, to the best possible potential that we have been blessed with, I think that is the biggest festivity, business celebration, biggest festival, and that's what we stand to vindicate this afternoon. CSIR, as was being mentioned by Dr. Reddy, also by Dr. Satyanarayan before that, has a rich history of its own. And incidentally, it's often not talked about that the history of CSIR dates back to pre-independence days. The concept occurred to those forefathers or the founding fathers who were not still visualizing the dawn of independence. And the first ever laboratory of CSIR was set up in 1941, which means 1 year before the onset of Quit India movement. I mean, these kind of things keep happening in the random research minds. And that's what I thought, this thought was occurring to me when I was sitting over here. So even before the Quit India movement had set in, the concept of having labs like this had set in. And the first ever, as he mentioned, Dr. Reddy, was set up in Jammu by none less than Sir Ramnath Chopra, who had superannuated from Calcutta and then chose to set up one in Jammu. Though he was not a native of that place, possibly he was from Punjab or whatever. And then among the earlier ones, the next 2-3 years was this one, Hyderabad, and close to independence, of course, the NPL. And then it underwent a series of change of nomenclature till it adapted the name today, the CSIR. And without being repetitive or without going into the long story of it, which has already been narrated to you, I think learning from the experience that we have had in the last meeting also, and I was trying to say, time has come to highlight I in CSIR. So in sometimes in very big houses, business houses write the acronym CSIR. One of them is written in a glittering, one of the letters is written in a glittering different color. I think time has come to make I little bold and in a different shade. But hats off to those founding fathers who had visualized this right from the beginning, which is now being visualized, which is now being realized much more than before. That industry has to be an important component of research and our scientific initiatives. And that was visualized at a time when industry in India was in a very primitive stage. But somewhere in the way, maybe because of the different priorities of the different dispensations at the helm, this did not happen, or this did not evolve in the manner it could have, or in the manner it had been envisaged. But luckily now we have a Prime Minister, Mr. Modi, who has the conviction to say this from the ramparts of Red Fort, which is not something easy. If you look back at his 9 Independence Day addresses as Prime Minister since 2014, virtually each of his Independence Day address carries one or the other scientific theme, which is quite unlike the prime ministerial addresses in the past. For example, in 2014, he speaks about Swachhata, cleanliness drive, which has a deep implication on our health, hygiene, particularly in the women folk, one of the commonest causes of urinary tract infection. Inadequate, improper toilet facilities. The first year, we had 4 lakh toilets built up in the female schools. The subsequent year, he says, Startup India, Stand Up India 2015. And I vividly remember many people kept asking, what does this mean? And the results are there for everybody to see. From 350, we have jumped over to 90,000 plus. We have more than 100 unicorns. Till about a few years back, we did not know. An average Indian walking around Charminar would not know what does unicorn mean and what is the spelling of unicorn. Today, it's become a household name. There's so much of aspiration has woken up in the minds. Everybody wants to be a unicorn. So I think it's not only that scientific ignition has been done, the industrial entrepreneurship has awakened, but there is rise of aspirational level in the last few years. Then the subsequent year, he talks about deep sea mission, again, which is taken off from the southern part of India, more so from Chennai. And he does that twice. Deep sea mission finds mention both in 2021-22 Independence Day address. And now, of course, green hydrogen mission. Prime Minister speaking from the ramparts of the Red Fort is actually meant to be a declaration of the intent of the government, which means now it is time for us. The Prime Minister is ready. Are we ready? The question is that. So all these themes, the 6 verticals possibly, which Dr. Reddy was talking about, the 6 different areas to which this institute is dedicated to, whether it's the energy or the chemicals, are finding references in one way or the other in prime ministerial addresses, which means we have all the intention, all the patronage, all the support available from the political dispensation, from the political leadership. Is now up to us. Unfortunately, what has happened is that the 40, 50 years that have gone by, our minds got conditioned, then nothing would happen. And that was, I was sensing even in the room when we were sitting in the industrial meet. We keep complaining to each other. We find some shoulder to keep the head and cry, because we know that will be the end of it. But here we have a dispensation today, ladies and gentlemen. That's what I've come to say on behalf of the government, which is ready to take up measures. And it has walked the talk. It is this government which moved the Department of Space out of wheel of secrecy, made it open to private participation, which nobody could have imagined till about 4 years back. Today, we have more than 130 startups there. Youngsters going there and launching their rockets. Would you ever have imagined all this? You saw a small news item referring to Sriharikota in the remote corner of the Hindu or some of the other newspapers. So it's entirely the only thing, our mindset is got conditioned by the experience of the past. And why I'm saying so is that here is the time when we have certain important ideas to move forward, because every one of us moves forward. So first of all is integration. Integration at 3 levels. The intra-integration, the intra-synergy. We have 37 such CSIR institutes. How many of us have visited each other? I won't embarrass you by putting this question. You can please go home and ask yourself. I was just now talking to Dr. Reddy and he was in full agreement. I'm glad that one of the launchings done was for metformin, which is related to my area of work, which is a very versatile drug. You have a whole lot of this kind of work being done in the IIIM, where Dr. Reddy just now relinquished charge. You have multi-resistant for tuberculosis being worked out there. So I said, could you not integrate with their work? And which, of course, was his idea. In fact, he said, yes, I've been thinking of that. So even amongst our 37 institutes, can we supplement each other's resources with both human resources as well as experience, as well as our inputs? That is first stage. Second is integration, intercoordination with the other institutes. The similar kind of research work, R&D happening also in other institutes, both public as well as private. Some of the private institutions are having much better developed projects on a theme that we are working at. Could we do that? And then extended integration with industry, with startups, with potential entrepreneurs. If only we can do that, we would have justified our role living in this age, century, and year of 2023. When the government is forthcoming, the Prime Minister is personally holding meetings for hours together with industry leaders. So I think important for us to set up an institutionalized mechanism. For example, in the last 1 hour when we were sitting, some very good suggestions came forth. But where to put them across? First of all, if we do an institutionalized thinking, we would be able to realize where to put across which suggestion. Normally what happens is that a political functionary comes visiting, and of course he's accompanied by cameramen. Rightly, wrongly, fortunately, unfortunately. And that's going to make news. So we find an opportunity to carry a memorandum, hand it over to him. Next day there's a newspaper item also, photograph also. And the things end at that. And next time when we sit together, Mantri ko bhi diya tha memorandum, director ko bhi diya, kuch nahi hua. But that's not the way. We have procedures laid out. And this is a government which is very sensitive, which Prime Minister himself is amenable to micromanagement, micro follow-up, like he did for COVID. Israel is a witness to that. In 2 years, if we have cut out 2 vaccines and look at the spirit with which, because it's a mutually enriching exercise. I was this morning telling Krishna, I said, your nasal vaccine has not found much of market. He said, true, because people are now no longer ready. I said, will you be able to bear with that loss? He said, no problem. More important is the health of the nation. Look at the spirit. Yeah. Because now why delayed clap happened? Because we are not so easily ready to believe what he has said. Because your mind have got conditioned. You don't understand. This is a healthy combination happening, healthy supplementation between a government headed by Prime Minister Modi, working with such an amount of sensitivity and professionalism, aligning itself with a business house, which also adopts or gets affected with the similar kind of sensitivity. It's not difficult for us. So if we have an institutionalized mechanism, then we know we have pre-budget meetings. The finance minister, the commerce minister visits every part of India before the budget. That's the SOP for the preceding 2 months before budget. And Hyderabad being one of the most important commercial as well as industrial towns. Why don't we put across there? Why don't we follow it up? And I tell you, this government is open to it. I just now cited an example. We put across a problem we were facing in the case of bamboo startups, the bamboo entrepreneurship. Bamboo is a versatile object or element. It is used in the manufacture of paper, in the panels, in the buildings, in the ornaments, in the jewelry, in cutlery, even in food items. And when it gets destroyed, as was being talked about waste to wealth, you can prepare fuel out of it. But the irony was that in this country, we have a business of over 5,000 to 6,000 crore of agarbatti alone, which you use in your households every morning. But the entire 5,000, 6,000 crore of business of agarbatti was happening through Korea, Vietnam, China. You have bamboo in your backyard. So when we study deep into this, because I was dealing with that region where you have plenty of bamboo in the Northeast, we understood that there were 2 impediments. A, that some of the products coming from the other countries were possibly more cost effective. The cost of manufacturing them here was little more. Now, these are some of the things which persons like Krishna who are deeply into it can give us feedback. So also all of us, if we get engaged. The second was that you had to go through a forest clearance for bamboo, which other countries didn't have. They treated it as grass or something like that. And do you know what was the response of this government? As I said in the case of space, as students of science, we have been taught to talk with evidence. So I can't get away without evidence. The Forest Clearance Act was formulated by the British government in 1918, more than 100 years ago. It was Prime Minister Modi who agreed to amend that and exempt bamboo, homegrown bamboo, from forest clearance. And the import duty on bamboo products coming from other countries was suddenly raised to 25%, so that they could be discouraged. Any profit-making sahukar would think, I'll purchase from there and sell in the domestic market, would think twice. I paid so much of duty, so why not ask this youngster, you have bamboo in your backyard, prepare some agarbatti and I'll sell it. So what I'm trying to say is that this government is ready to walk extra mile. So let's change our mindset, be ready to avail of all that is there to be offered in an atmosphere of mutual coexistence and mutual benefit. And I'm sure IICT Hyderabad, being a pioneer institute, not only in terms of an R&D institution, but also because of its close and one of the earliest linkages with industry, also by virtue of having been located in Hyderabad, can set an example or a model for us to follow in the other labs. I was telling Reddy just now, I think one of the issues is, that we don't know about each other lab. And the other is that the lab itself is not known to the local people around. Sometimes you are doing a research on metformin. You should have a natural relationship with Osmania Medical College or with the Nizam Institute. We don't have. We were doing 2 drug searches in his lab. I visited him. In fact, he has been so personally persuading that I should come here. And since I had no dates, he said, okay, Holi is the date, because Holi is not so much celebrated here, you come here. So seeing his passion, I am here. When I went to his earlier lab, they were doing so much of work on pharma. And suddenly I realized that 3 kilometers away from him was one of a 50-year-old postgraduate institute. So I told him, I said, I'll go from here only after I get you introduced with the dean of that institute. So we waited there. The lady came after 1 hour, and now they signed an MOU. And I'm glad that this year they have started a pharmacology thesis for postgraduate students with a co-guide from CSIR. So if we have to integrate at different levels. We cannot be integrating in parts and bits. Presenting a memorandum is good enough, because that at least you give reassurance to your stakeholders, to your clients, that you are working. But to move things forward, and I think now it is the right milieu, right time that we can do so. As I said, the top is ready. Are we ready? And if not, then we would be losing time. And I'm sure Hyderabad, IICT have all the potentials, all the capacities to take a lead and to lay down a model for the rest of the country. Thank you very much. I look forward to be here again.
Thank you, Honorable Minister, for your valuable address. Indeed, sir, your august presence in this campus has made it a HOLYDAY for us, Holy Day.